Lots of improvement by the Utah Jazz compared to the game in LA, but Klay Thompson found the time machine. It was too much for the Jazz to handle, and defensively, still massive amounts of inadequacies. We're talking about it all next on Postcast.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
David Locke along with Ron Boone with you here for Postcast tonight as the Utah Jazz fall 118-110, a game that probably wasn't that close, but was much improved by the Utah Jazz. Ron, so let's start with that. You kind of were on that early tonight. Defensively, there's still some issues, but actually I would even say we'll look back at it and we'll see that second quarter was actually a pretty good defensive quarter. So let's go to what were your areas where you thought this team was much better tonight? They can't seem to hear Ron. Can you figure out why they can't hear Ron's microphone?
You're the only one plugged in.
Oh, I didn't know there was another plug-in. We'll get to Ron in 1 second here, everybody. Maybe we're not going to be able to get Ron. So he only built it for me to talk and not to Ron to talk, but look at this quick change here. I can just run it right into my board directly. Let's see if this works. Thank you very much for the people in the chat letting us know that. Ron Boone, give me a quick mic check.
1, 2, 3, 4. I can't hear myself now.
All right. You're not going to be able to hear yourself just because the way we've worked it, but I think you guys can hear Ron. So let's go back to that. Sorry, I apologize for that. Ron, let's go back to what did you hear that was much better? What did you see that was much better in tonight's ballgame?
Well, first of all, the Jazz got up 24 shots in that first half, which means that they were playing a lot faster. They were pushing the basketball up the floor and had movement. And for the most part, that's what, was creating the open looks that they got. Just think about the type of shots that Johnny Juzang got in that first quarter. He got 4 3-point shots, and all those 3-point shots came from almost the same spot in that left corner, strictly because of the way they were playing. The up-tempo style of play, even after a made basket, I thought they looked better offensively. That's concerned. Defensively, that's something else. But offensively, I thought that, and it wasn't, we rely on Keontae to bring the ball up the floor quite a bit. It wasn't necessarily Keontae that was bringing the ball up the floor this time, and that's the reason they was able to get in the stop.
If we go back to our pregame show, we aired Will Hardy's post-game comments last night in LA, and a question he got from Thurl Bailey, where he talked about, hey, we're not looking for points and rebounds. We're looking for the following things. And one of them was play offense with force, run the floor, execute. Those are the things you're saying you saw.
Exactly. This game, David, and one of the things that I think hurt this team is that they're not physical enough. Basketball is not a non-contact sport. And I think once they get that in their mind of knowing how to play with contact, with force, without fouling, then they get much better defensively. But right now, a little soft, and they give up too much.
Well, and then on the defensive end, I'm not sure that they fixed that a great deal because Klay Thompson ran free. Their goal on Klay Thompson was to turn him into a driver. Instead, he got a bunch of threes early. Their defensive rating was a 152 in the first quarter. That does still seem to be a problem. They're kind of, Will Hardy talked about this pregame too, that he talked about, because I asked specifically, how do you know when you're supposed to be shifted and when you're supposed to be in contact? There were plays against the Clippers when I went back and rewatched it where Taylor Hendricks so far off Paul George when he starts his route, you're dead. You're dead. And you've got to be in contact. But at the same time, they're saying shifting. And that's where Will Hardy said, we're just taking things way too literally. We've got to feel the game and understand the game a little bit of what's going on.
Yeah, and you're looking at 19-year-old players that's playing at a level that that's unbelievable to them. I mean, they're playing against guys that they watched on TV and have no clue on how to defend some of these guys. What you're hearing and watching in practice and the coaching defensive plans, sometimes you know what you're supposed to do, but your body's not reacting to it. Coach, for the most part, will evaluate that going forward and see if they get better at it from 2 or 3 games ago when they start playing them a lot to the end of the year and try to make some corrections.
There is one defensive play that keeps continuing to haunt them, and that is on a pick and roll. They're playing their big at the level of the screen, up to touch or up at the level of the screen, which means the ball handler's coming around trailing the pick. The big is up. Now the pick has been set and the big is rolling. He's catching the ball in the middle of the paint. It started in Oklahoma City with Chet Holmgren, and he's dunking like time and time and time again. Somebody, I'm assuming a third defender is supposed to be coming into the weak side, and they're just late on this.
It depends. Sometimes there's a show and release, which means you show just to give the, for instance, just say Keontae was guarding Chris Paul coming off a pick. If Taylor was supposed just to show and make sure that Keontae gets over to get in front of Paul, then you release back to your man. Or you switch and you get rotation from the backside. I'm not really sure how they wanted to do something like that, but whatever the case, there was way too many dunks that the Jazz gave up tonight with Kuminga, with Jackson Davis, and so that was something was falling apart.
And just not to give the guys an excuse, but just to try to explain for a moment, let's take the 2 examples we've shared here. So if I'm guarding Paul George on the wing, and I got to be up on him because if he starts his route, I'm dead. And they run that pick and roll, and I'm the weak side defender. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Now I've got to come in and weak side defend that.
Right.
But all of a sudden, a minute ago, I got beat when Paul George or Klay Thompson came up on a curl, and I got a hug to Klay Thompson. But now I got to get back. And these are things that guys who are playing in their 20th and 25th games of their NBA career just don't make. They don't make these plays. This is why young guys don't play playoff games. It's why rookies don't help you win in the league, is because of moments like this where it's just too hard. And what Will Hardy said is you got to begin to understand, feel the game to see what's happening when these things happen. And it's not surprising these things are happening, but this is what's happening.
You got to understand, you just touched on something there, and a perfect example of why veteran coaches don't go to those rookies unless, there are some rookies that are just great players right away when they come into the league. But that's the reason that you find a lot of coaches don't go to those rookies in the playoffs, because of the mistakes that they'll make and will get you, just flat out get you in trouble. But the type of players that the Jazz have now going forward, they're going to have to show to the point where they're getting better defensively.
Let's get to the highlight of the night, though, and it's hard work, and it's determination, and it's changing your game so you can become an NBA player, and it's Johnny Juzang, who came to the NBA without a three-point shot as a mid-range shooter, a self-created mid-range shooter. He's evolved over this year into a three-point shooter. He had a very good year with the Stars. He hit a bunch of threes earlier this year. Then he went ice cold here, and you began to feel like, if you go back to last year, he shot really, really poorly in the same stretch of the season. You began to feel like that was happening, but not tonight. He came out, buried a bunch of threes, had a career high tonight, had 22 in the first half. He really played great.
Yeah, he got those looks that you need, and he has a great catch and release. I mean, he catches, gets rid of the basketball. I'm watching him shoot before the ball games. He's on balance most of the time, and that's, when you have a touch like he has, you can, for the most part, have a lot of confidence in your shot. And then again, he got into a rhythm from the same spot tonight, which really made a big difference for him knocking down those shots.
All right. Keontae George hits 3 threes with the game basically over late. He does cover the spread, which is interesting on those. It was 12.5. He moved it from 16 to 8. He had come into the game tonight. Keontae was shooting, I don't have it exactly, but it's 26% from the field, like 17% from 3 in the last 9. I don't need to be exact. It's fine, Ron. Don't worry about it. We don't want to
6 of the last 29.
So he hits 3 threes late. Does it matter?
I think as far as his confidence and everything is concerned, yes, it does. Or if he did some good things out there on the floor, or the right things, I'm going to say good things, the right things out there on the floor, then the coach will be very happy with something like that. But I think where it matters is right here in his head. That's where it matters at. But, you're looking at a game that's probably out of reach. And you see this a lot where guys end up scoring when the game is over and all this, and no pressure on them. But I think as far as, in your head, 6 for 29 coming into tonight's game as far as the three-point shot is concerned. That's something to worry about.
One thing I'll be interested to talk to the coach about, we did see Bryce Sensabaugh initiate the offense more tonight than we have in the past. I don't know if there were a lot of dividends out of it. I actually noticed it was happening, but wasn't keeping track of how they did on it. He had 3 assists, 1 turnover. I don't have an opinion on it because I don't recall, but it was noticeable that they were giving Bryce Sensabaugh those moments in that time. If you have a memory of how they played out, I don't.
Well, what it does, it's giving Keontae a chance, or them a chance to see Keontae playing off ball, and maybe that's where they think he's more effective right now, and then trying to see if Sensabaugh can play that role from time to time and be effective at it. All of this thing that they're doing out there on the floor now is just prep and getting a very good look at guys in game type situations. Practice is different. In a game type situations like they have here is a big difference.
Well, that's a good one for the Jazz tonight. At least they played a lot better. We'll come back home for our final 2 home games of the season, Tuesday and Thursday. Tickets are available at UtahJazz.com. One note, Keontae only 1 turnover tonight, which is a nice change from some of those. Your stars tonight, Ron Boone?
Well, obviously it has to be Johnny Juzang. 27 points, 9 for 12, 8 for 7 from the 3-point line. That other player, we just talked about Keontae scoring late in the ball game. It ended up with 25 points, with 12 or 13 to 14 of those coming in the fourth quarter. And other than that, I don't think Colin Sexton did anything spectacular. So I'm just going to go with Keontae.
Keontae, by the way, Taylor Hendricks hits 3 of 6 from 3, continues to be shooting over 40% from 3. Omer Yurtseven actually played pretty well tonight in his 19 minutes as well. Jazz fall to the Warriors. Finals 118-110. Thanks for tuning into POSTCAST. We'll now send you the first ever 24/7 national streaming channel. It's called Locked On Sports Today. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or on Amazon Fire TV. Have a great night.